I'm Daniel, 29, and until recently, I'd have told you my family was just a bit distant, not cruel, not abusive, just selective with their warmth. Growing up, it was always about my younger brother, Jake. He was the athlete, the charmer, the one who could do no wrong even when he skipped school or crashed dad's car. Me? I was the quiet one with books, the one who got teased at dinner for always being so serious. But I never complained. I thought if I just worked hard enough, achieved enough, maybe I'd finally be seen as more than just the family's background character. So I did. I kept my head down, got through college with honors, then a scholarship for a master's program in biomedical engineering. It was grueling, late nights, weekends and labs, months of ramen and missed birthdays. But I told myself it would all be worth it the day they saw me walk across that stage. I planned everything months in advance. My graduation ceremony was scheduled for a Friday afternoon, and since my family lived just 2 states away, I offered to fly home a day early and then fly them all out at my expense. I even booked a private dining room at a really nice restaurant downtown for the celebration afterward. 10 seats, custom menu, prepaid deposit. I sent the invites in a group chat with all the details and got a mix of lukewarm thumbs-up emojis and one cool from Jake. But I tried not to read into it. People get busy, right? The week leading up to graduation, I barely slept. Not just from the workload, but from excitement. This was it, my moment. I even bought my dad a tie and had it shipped to the house, said in the card, "Can't wait to see you wearing this at graduation." No reply. Still, I kept hoping, kept believing. The morning of the big day, I called my mom to double-check flight times. She didn't answer. I tried again. Nothing. I figured they might be in the air already. The ceremony was at 3 p.m., and I kept checking the reserved seats up front that I'd saved with name cards. They stayed empty. I texted the group, "Where are you guys?" No answer. I tried calling again. Voicemail. I went up on stage, gave my speech to a room of smiling strangers, and my eyes kept flicking to the door. Waiting. Hoping. When it was over, I checked my phone and saw the message from Jake. "We're at Dad's barbecue." No one wanted to sit through another boring speech. LOL. I stared at it for a long time, reading it again and again like maybe it would change. Like maybe the letters would rearrange themselves into something less cruel. But they didn't. That was it. No apology. No regret. Just a casual dismissal of one of the most important days of my life. I went to the restaurant anyway. Table for 10, just like I planned. The hostess looked confused when I told her it would just be me. I sat alone under warm lighting with a perfectly arranged place setting in front of me. The waiter came by, his smile faltering slightly when he saw the untouched glasses around the table. "Should I wait for the others?" he asked. I just shook my head. "They're not coming." I ordered a glass of wine and stared at the flickering candle in the center of the table, wondering how I'd gotten here. Wondering if I'd made some fundamental mistake in expecting something different from them. Then I had a thought, cold, detached, almost mechanical. I flagged the waiter and asked for the check. Paid it in full, tipped well, and asked for a to-go box. Then I walked down the street to the nearest print shop, pulled up the live stream of my graduation on my phone, and took a screenshot of me at the podium. Printed it. Framed it. At the front, just below the image of me standing in front of hundreds of people, I added a small brass plaque, reserved for 10. I mailed the receipt for the dinner, the framed photo, and a link to the full live stream to my parents' house. No note. No explanation. Just the facts. What they didn't know yet, what no one outside of my lab did, was that the day before graduation, my team's project had secured $40 million in private funding. We were going live with development the following month, and I'd just signed on as the lead researcher. My name, Daniel Myers, was about to be printed on something that could change lives. That day, as the camera panned across the auditorium and captured my closing speech, I announced it publicly for the first time. The clip went viral on campus. My inbox filled with congratulations from professors, classmates, even people I'd never met. But from my family? Silence. That is, until an hour later. My sister, Emma, called me. 3 missed calls. Then a text. "Please call me." I had no idea it was this serious. "I feel awful." Then another. "Can we please talk? I think we messed up." And then one more. "Daniel, I'm crying. I'm so sorry. We want to reconnect. Please don't shut us out." I stared at the screen. My phone lit up again. And again. I didn't pick up. Because in that moment, I realized something. I had spent my whole life trying to earn a seat at a table that was never meant for me. And now? Now I was building my own. I let the phone buzz in my hand until it finally stopped. Emma's name faded from the screen, leaving only the glow of my reflection on the black glass. I slipped the phone into my coat pocket and stood at the corner of the street, the cold air cutting through the fabric like the silence had cut through years of effort. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I was just done. Over the next few days, the messages kept coming in. First from Emma, then my mom, then even Jake, who texted, "Didn't know you were doing big stuff. Congrats, I guess. Barbecue was lit though, lol." The casualness of it nearly made me laugh. It was like a child poking a hornet's nest and acting surprised when he got stung. I didn't reply. Instead, I focused on work. The lab was buzzing with energy. We were developing a neural scaffold that had the potential to restore motor function in stroke patients. A massive leap forward if successful. Investors were flying in from 3 different continents. My team started calling me Doc, even though my doctorate was still in progress. I buried myself in it, and every day I didn't answer those texts felt like I was slowly reclaiming a piece of myself. About a week later, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a letter from my mom. Handwritten. It started with the usual, "We didn't mean to hurt you." Then, "You've always been so independent. We didn't think you'd care." And finally, "Your dad said it was too expensive to fly everyone out." But Jake was already planning the barbecue, and it felt easier to do one thing together. She ended it with, "We're proud of you, Daniel. We just wish you'd let us say it in person." Let them say it in person? After they ghosted my graduation? After they ate ribs in a backyard while I gave a speech to a crowd of strangers in the biggest moment of my life? I folded the letter once, then again, then slid it back into the envelope and left it on the shelf by my door. Then came the real cherry on top. 2 weeks after graduation, Jake posted a photo on Instagram. It was one of those obnoxious selfies of him shirtless at the lake, holding a beer with a fake deep caption, "Success isn't about degrees. It's about being real." The comment section was full of fire emojis and "preach bro" replies from his usual group of enablers. But nestled between all that noise, I saw a comment from Emma. "Honestly proud of both my brothers in different ways." That was it. That was the moment I realized they weren't sorry. Not really. They were embarrassed. They were scrambling to rewrite the narrative now that they knew I wasn't just the quiet one with books. I was the one who got out, who made it, and they were too late to be part of it. Still, I said nothing. But life has a funny way of circling back. A month after my announcement, the university hosted a private networking gala for donors, researchers, and selected faculty. It was a big deal: black tie, champagne towers, and a list of people whose names regularly appeared in Forbes. I'd been asked to speak again, this time about innovation and access. My face was on the brochure, and I knew, because of course I knew, that the university sent one of those brochures to every family of graduating honors students. Sure enough, 2 nights before the gala, my dad emailed me. A single line: "We're coming into town this weekend. Want to grab lunch?" I stared at the message like it was radioactive. He hadn't called. He hadn't even acknowledged the photo I'd sent. Just this sudden pop-in invitation, like nothing had happened. I didn't respond. The day of the gala, I stepped onto that ballroom stage in a tailored navy suit, my name projected in elegant lettering behind me. I gave a 10-minute speech about resilience, about rising from obscurity not in spite of being underestimated, but because of it. The applause was thunderous. And then, as the crowd dispersed for drinks and photos, I saw them. Standing awkwardly near the entrance were my parents. My mom was wearing the same blue blazer she always wore to important events. My dad looked stiff, like he didn't know how to dress for this kind of success anymore. Emma was with them, smiling a little too wide. Jake wasn't there. They spotted me. My mom raised her hand slightly in a wave. I smiled politely, then turned and walked in the opposite direction. For the rest of the night, I made sure I was always across the room, deep in conversation with funders, laughing with professors, posing with my team for photos. I never once looked back in their direction. They were strangers now, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized they always had been. That night, I checked my phone and saw a final message from Emma. "We were really hoping to talk tonight. You're still our brother. Please let us in." The message from Emma stayed on my screen longer than it should have. I kept rereading it, not because I was considering replying, but because I was trying to figure out when that word, brother, had stopped meaning something. It wasn't an overnight thing. It was gradual. A slow erosion of every ignored phone call, every birthday they skipped, every time they called Jake the successful one, while patting me on the back like I was some family pet that managed not to bark too loud. But that night, something inside me truly shifted. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just shut off the screen, got into bed, and for the first time in years, slept straight through the night. A few weeks passed. The project at the lab was accelerating fast. We were invited to pitch at a health tech summit in Berlin, and I was selected as one of 5 researchers to represent our country. I still wasn't used to this. The way strangers treated me like someone important. How people leaned in when I spoke, wrote down what I said, and sometimes just stared like they were trying to memorize my face. I'd spent most of my life invisible, and now suddenly I wasn't. It was exhilarating and a little terrifying. Then came the feature. One of the summit's media partners reached out to do a spotlight piece on young innovators changing the world. They interviewed me for an hour, asked about my childhood, my motivation, what kept me going. I hesitated when the journalist asked about my support system, my family. I paused, then smiled and said, let's just say I had a lot of space to grow. The piece ran the following week. Full-page photo. My name in bold letters. Quotes about breaking generational patterns and carving out your own legacy. The article went viral in the industry. I got calls from 3 major universities asking if I'd consider teaching part-time. Our lab's inbox filled with investment inquiries. And my parents? They finally called. Not just Emma this time. Not just a half-hearted text. A full-on call from my mother's number. I watched the screen light up and vibrate across my desk as I reviewed a grant proposal. For a split second, I considered answering. Not to reconnect, but to say everything I'd been holding in since the day they didn't show up. But I didn't. Instead, I hit decline. 5 minutes later, I got a text from my dad. We saw the article. We're proud of you, son. Let's talk soon. Things don't have to be this way. That one made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because of how easily the roles had flipped. When I was a kid, every time I asked for their attention, their support, their time, I got excuses. Now that they wanted access, suddenly I was the one with the power to say yes or no. And I kept saying no. But life, again, had one more twist waiting for me. A month later, I got a call from a name I hadn't seen in years. Aunt Gloria, my mom's sister. She was always the neutral one, the peacemaker, the person who brought potato salad to every event and tried to keep the peace with passive-aggressive hugs. Daniel, she said after a long pause. I know we haven't talked in a while, but I thought you should know. Your dad's planning something. A surprise birthday party. For you. I blinked. What? Your 30th's coming up. They're trying to throw a party. Huge guest list. Friends, extended family. They want to make it this big thing. Your mom's calling it a reconciliation moment. Thought you'd want to know before invitations go out. I was stunned. Not because they were throwing a party, but because they thought I'd come. They haven't even spoken to me properly, I said quietly. And now they want to parade me around like I'm suddenly a trophy? Gloria sighed. I know. I told them it was a bad idea. But they think if they make it public enough, you'll show. I felt a slow heat crawl up my spine. Not anger, clarity. They want to use me to clean their image, I said. To rewrite the story. Pretend they've always been supportive. There was silence on the line. Then Gloria said, Are you going to go? I didn't respond to Gloria's question that day, but I spent the next few hours pacing around my apartment, chewing on the possibilities like a problem I needed to solve. Every part of me wanted to ignore the whole thing, leave them on read, like they had done to me my entire life. But another part of me, a sharper part, saw the opportunity for what it was. They wanted a performance. They wanted optics. They wanted a shiny redemption arc where they got to pretend they'd always believed in me. So I made a decision. I was going to let them host their party. And I was going to burn the whole illusion to the ground, politely, of course. 2 weeks later, the invitation arrived in my inbox. A digital card covered in gold cursive and balloons. Daniel turns 30. Come celebrate a family success story. The event was scheduled for a Saturday evening, hosted at a local country club I didn't even know they had access to. Dress code. Formal. Guest list. Family, friends, old classmates, neighbors, anyone who could be impressed. I RSVP'd yes without a comment. They didn't message back. They probably thought they'd won. In the meantime, I made a few quiet preparations. First, I booked a flight, not to my parents' city, but to a nearby one with a luxury hotel where I could stay in peace. Second, I reached out to my team's media liaison and asked if she'd mind scheduling a press release to go out at exactly 8 p.m. the night of the party. Just something simple, a short blurb announcing that our research team had secured FDA pre-approval for the first round of clinical trials, alongside a new $14 million grant from a major health foundation. She smiled and said, "Happy early birthday." The night of the party, I arrived exactly on time, wearing a tailored black suit and walking calmly past a dozen cars lined up in the circular driveway. It was the kind of event they used to drag me to as a kid, just so I could hand out plates or run and get more drinks while Jake soaked up all the attention. Funny how times change. I walked through the entrance, and the whole room seemed to pause. Conversations quieted. Heads turned. I spotted my mother first, dressed in navy blue, holding a wine glass, her smile too tight to be sincere. My dad stood next to her in a rented tuxedo, already sweating under the collar. Emma hovered near the buffet, looking like she wanted to be anywhere else. I scanned the room. All the people who'd spent years calling me the quiet one, the serious one, the one who's always in school, were now smiling and waving like I'd always been the golden child. Jake wasn't there. I walked up to my parents. My mother opened her mouth first. "You look good." I nodded. "I do." Dad cleared his throat. "We wanted to do something special. Thought it was time we really showed you how proud we are." "Thanks," I said flatly, and let the silence hang. The party went exactly how I expected. Speeches. Toasts. The DJ playing some middle-of-the-road classics no one really liked. I kept to myself, sipping sparkling water and watching them all orbit around their own fantasy. This idea that we were a close family again, that none of the hurt mattered now that I was successful enough to be acknowledged. Around 7:45, my mother clinked her glass. "Everyone," she said loudly, "if we could have your attention, we want to say a few words about our son, Daniel." The spotlight hit my face. I didn't flinch. Dad stepped forward, clearing his throat like he was about to address Congress. "Daniel has always been brilliant," he began. "Even if we didn't always understand what he was working on, we knew he was destined for great things. And now, we're just so honored to celebrate his achievements with all of you, his friends, his family, his support system." Support system. I smiled. That was the moment. I stepped up to the microphone, adjusted it gently, and said, "Thank you for the kind words, Dad. And thanks, everyone, for coming." I scanned the room. Before I say anything else, I'd like to clear up a small misconception. Some of you may think I got here because I had a great support system, that I was lifted up by a family that always had my back. I looked at my parents. That's not quite true. There were small murmurs. My mother blinked. My father shifted uncomfortably. I continued. "When I graduated with my master's degree last year, I reserved a table for 10 at a restaurant. 10 seats. Every single one of them empty. Instead, my family chose to attend a backyard barbecue. My brother texted me no one wanted to sit through another boring speech." Gasps. A few people turned to my mom, who went pale. That was one of the most important days of my life. Not because of the ceremony, but because it was the day I stopped waiting for their approval. Silence. Absolute silence. "And tonight," I said, smiling, "I'd like to thank you for coming. Because just a few minutes ago, a press release went out to the industry. My team's research is moving into clinical trials. We secured $14 million in new funding. And we're developing a treatment that could give paralyzed patients back the ability to walk." The room erupted in applause, but I kept my eyes on my mother's stunned face. My dad had stopped clapping halfway through. And while I appreciate the gesture of this party, I added, "I want to be very clear. I didn't get here because of my family. I got here in spite of them." I stepped back, set the mic down, and walked out. People tried to stop me. Emma followed me into the hallway, calling my name. "Daniel, wait." I turned. "You laughed when Jake said I was a background character." She flinched. "I didn't mean." "I know what you meant," I said. "And I meant what I said tonight." She didn't follow me after that. I got in my car, drove back to the hotel, turned off my phone, ordered room service, and watched the city lights flicker through the window as I ate. And for the first time in my life, I felt completely free. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of texts. Some supportive, some apologetic, some angry. My dad sent one long message about how I'd humiliated them in front of everyone and that I should have handled it like an adult. I didn't respond because I had finally handled it exactly like an adult. By telling the truth, by setting boundaries, and by refusing to let people who abandoned me suddenly claim credit for what I built. That was 6 months ago. I haven't seen or spoken to my family since. But the project is thriving. My name's been added to the shortlist for a National Innovation Award. We're on track to publish in one of the top medical journals next quarter. And in a few days, I'll be moving into a new apartment overlooking the water, something I used to think only people with real families did. Now, I know better. Sometimes, you don't find your family. You build one. And you start by walking away from the people who never clapped when you were small, so they don't get a front row seat when you finally grow tall.